If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. Milky Way. The galaxy always thought it owned the ledger of life. Every credit, every favor, every life owed, cataloged and weighed by alien hands colder than neutron stars. But they underestimated humans. Always humans. When the debt was first recorded, the consensus was unanimous. A species too fragile, too unpredictable, too emotional, too insignificant. They called us borrowers, weaklings who would quietly fade into the black, leaving nothing but data in bureaucratic archives. But they never considered one thing: human memory, human patience, human grudges. The first repayment came silently. No trumpets, no fleets. Just a whisper moving through the interstellar comm channels, a message in a bottle cast into the void. We remember. The planets of the Direction Cluster, the very heart of alien commerce and power, stirred at the hint of it. Executives, warlords, and interstellar bankers felt a chill as though the cosmos itself was holding its breath. Something ancient had awakened. For 3 centuries, humanity had kept records, receipts, accounts, names, favors owed, and they had waited, calculating each interest, each penalty, each cosmic slight. Every wrong, cataloged. Every insult, noted. And now, the balance sheet was ready. In orbit above a forgotten moon, a human ship drifted quietly. No banners, no proclamations. Just the ship's shadow stretching over the cratered surface like a specter. Inside, the crew, descendants of 1,000 generations, prepared for what the galaxy thought impossible. And then the first strike landed. Not with lasers, nor with bombs, but with precision. An economic maneuver that toppled entire systems, destabilized currencies, and left governments scrambling for answers. The galaxy had underestimated human accounting and would soon pay the full price. A ripple of fear spread faster than light. Every corner of the Galactic Council felt it. Something was coming. Something deliberate. Something that had been brewing for 300 years. And the humans were only just beginning. The council chambers were massive, vaulted ceilings, walls etched with histories of conquest and betrayal. But none of it prepared them for what was coming. Hushed whispers filled the room as representatives from 100 worlds argued over the anomaly. A human fleet had appeared in the trade routes without warning. They had always believed humans relied on brute force or luck. But this was something else. Strategy woven with patience, precision, and a terrifying understanding of every interstellar law and loophole. Every move calculated not to destroy blindly, but to command fear. Commander Alera, the youngest to ever sit on the Galactic Council, noticed the pattern immediately. Economic destabilizations on 3 key systems, fleet movements that traced invisible lines, and communications disrupted in ways only someone intimately familiar with every council protocol could manage. Humans were not attacking, they were reclaiming. A senior ambassador scoffed, thinking it a bluff. Humans lack discipline. They cannot sustain a campaign. Their systems are fragile. But as the first core worlds fell into chaos, stock crashes, energy grid failures, bureaucracies collapsing, the laughter died in their throats. Humans had waited. They had watched. They had calculated every moment of vulnerability. And now, 300 years of perceived weakness became a weapon sharper than any plasma cannon. And yet, for all their planning, one question gnawed at the council. Why now? Why after centuries of patience had they chosen to strike? Was it vengeance? Or a lesson the galaxy was not prepared to learn? From a hidden star base near the edges of the Zinthari Nebula, Admiral Kale of the human fleet observed the chaos below. He spoke softly, almost reverently. The debt is due. Let them understand what patience truly means. And the first world of the Direction Cluster fell silent, its leaders trapped in the shattering realization. Humans were not just repaying, they were teaching the galaxy fear. The first shockwave of human strategy had already unsettled the galaxy, but the real storm was still gathering. Across the void, spies and informants reported movements that defied logic, supply lines rerouted with impossible speed, fleets appearing where no one thought possible, and communications manipulated so subtly no alien intelligence agency could trace them. Humans were everywhere, yet nowhere. On Direction Prime, the capital of the trade conglomerate, panic replaced protocol. Markets collapsed, banks seized, and the citizens who had once scoffed at humanity now whispered tales of impending doom. Merchants who had laughed at human weakness were scrambling, trying to secure wealth they thought untouchable. But the humans didn't want their riches, not yet. They wanted acknowledgement. They wanted the galaxy to understand that every favor unpaid, every loan ignored, every insult and slight was a line in the ledger, and every line had a consequence. Commander Alara pored over the reports, her mind racing. They're not just attacking, she murmured to herself. They're correcting, rebalancing the scales, and they're always one step ahead. On a remote observation platform, Admiral Kale stood before a digital map of the galaxy. Every empire has its weaknesses, he said. His voice was calm, almost casual, but there was fire behind his eyes. We've waited centuries. Now, it's time for the reckoning. And then, just as the council thought they could regroup, a signal cut through every comm network simultaneously. A human voice, clear, unwavering. The debt is due. Prepare to pay, or prepare to disappear. The galaxy froze. Ships drifted aimlessly. Leaders dropped their devices in disbelief. Even the most seasoned generals felt the cold grip of dread. Humans were no longer a footnote in the annals of history. They were the authors now, and the first chapter was just the beginning. Chaos spread like wildfire across the Drexian cluster. Entire fleets that had once prided themselves on invincibility were immobilized, not by weapons, but by humans' uncanny ability to exploit systems, predict movements, and strike at the exact moment their enemies were weakest. It was not brute force, it was calculated inevitability. On the surface of Virion 9, the Council's financial hub, emissaries watched in horror as the human fleet executed maneuvers no one thought possible. Credits vanished from accounts, supply chains fractured, and entire bureaucracies ground to a halt. The galaxy had prided itself on control, but now control was an illusion. Amid the panic, a young economist named Thalen realized something that made his blood run cold. They're not destroying our systems, he whispered. They're teaching us to fear the power of our own neglect. In the human command ship orbiting a nearby star, Admiral Kale observed the unfolding disarray. Every favor ignored, every debt unpaid, he said, eyes fixed on the holographic map, has consequences. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when it underestimates humanity. Meanwhile, the Council's chambers descended into chaos. Alliances fractured under pressure, accusations flew like daggers, and the once proud leaders of the galaxy could only watch as humans turned centuries of inattention into a masterclass of retribution. Then came the first direct challenge. A Drexian warlord, desperate to assert authority, broadcast a threat across human frequencies. Your patience has limits, human. Face us or be destroyed. Kale smiled, a hint of steel in his voice. Patience is limitless. You taught us that. And with that, a maneuver so precise it was almost poetic struck the warlord's flagship. Silence fell, and the galaxy began to understand. Humans did not fight to conquer. They fought to repay, and the price was unimaginable. The first shocks of human repayment had rattled the Drexian cluster, but the galaxy's true reckoning was only beginning. Across the outer systems, humans executed maneuvers that no one could predict, striking economic hubs, disrupting fleets, and turning bureaucratic machinery into instruments of fear. Every move was surgical, almost artistic, leaving chaos in its wake. On a remote moon, Ambassador Ralix of the Crate Syndicate watched through encrypted channels as his holdings collapsed. It's impossible, he muttered. No species should be able to coordinate this, not after centuries of isolation. But humans thrived on isolation. They had mastered patience like no one else. They had learned every loophole, every system flaw, every weakness the galaxy had ignored. And now, centuries of neglect were turning against the very empires that had once laughed at them. Inside the human flagship, Admiral Kale addressed his crew. This is not about destruction. This is about balance. Every debt has a cost. Every slight has a price. Today, the galaxy learns respect the hard way. Back in the council chambers, Commander Alara watched the collapse of her allies and enemies alike. Fear was no longer whispered. It was visible. Leaders moved cautiously, second-guessing every command. Humans had made them realize a terrifying truth. The galaxy had underestimated an entire species for too long. Then, a ripple of dread ran through every system when an encoded human message hit simultaneously. You thought weakness could be ignored. You were wrong. And now, your reckoning begins. The galaxy trembled, not from weapons, not from armies, but from the calculated return of what it owed. And deep in the void, humans prepared the next wave. The galaxy's mightiest fleets scrambled in panic, but their efforts were futile. Humans did not follow predictable patterns. They were everywhere, yet invisible until the moment they struck. Entire supply chains failed, and the very foundations of trade, communication, and governance shook under a force no one could name: human precision and patience. On the planet Calyx, the governor stared at the holographic display of collapsing markets. "They're not just repaying debt, they're rewriting history," he whispered. Panic laced his voice as ships once thought invincible vanished in moments, not by firepower, but by strategic sabotage that left no trace. In the human flagship, Admiral Kale's voice cut through the comms, calm and deliberate. "Every empire that thought us weak, every system that ignored our warnings, every ledger that was left unbalanced, we are here to correct it. No emotion, no chaos, only retribution measured in years and patience." Commander Alara, now fully aware of the scale of human strategy, realized the terrifying scope. The humans had learned to weaponize patience itself. Every delay, every forgotten promise, every century-long oversight had become a tool in their arsenal. And then, in the darkest reaches of the Drexian cluster, the first planetary surrender arrived, not to fight, not to negotiate, but because the humans had already won. The galaxy was beginning to understand that this was not a war in the traditional sense. This was a reckoning of debts, and no one could outrun it. From the observation deck, Kale's eyes scanned the star systems below. "They called us weak," he said quietly. "Now, they will know that patience is power, and humans never forget." The surrender of one world sent shockwaves through the rest of the galaxy. Rumors of human precision, patience, and ruthlessness spread faster than any fleet could travel. Leaders who once mocked humanity now whispered in terror, questioning every past decision. On Drexian Prime, panic erupted in the streets. Citizens abandoned markets, generals abandoned strategy rooms, and politicians abandoned promises. For 3 centuries, they had measured humans by their strength, and now they realized that underestimation had been fatal. Admiral Kale stood before the crew on the bridge, the glow of distant stars reflecting off his eyes. "This is not chaos. This is justice," he said firmly. "Every favor unreturned, every debt unpaid, every slight forgotten. We are here to balance the scales." Meanwhile, Commander Alara scrambled to coordinate defenses, but every maneuver seemed to anticipate her thoughts. Human actions weren't random. They were predictive, like a master playing a centuries-long chess game. Then came the message that froze every leader's blood. "We are patient. We are precise. We are human. And the debt is almost fully repaid." A silence settled over the galaxy unlike anything before. Ships drifted. Communications froze. Even the Council realized that the humans had transformed fear into a weapon, and the weapon was far more powerful than fleets, lasers, or bombs. And in the shadows of the void, Admiral Kale prepared for the final phase. The galaxy would soon learn a lesson written in centuries of patience, calculated precision, and human resolve that could not be broken. The galaxy's leaders had begun to realize the terrifying truth. This was not a conventional war. There were no massive battles, no endless bombardments. Humans had weaponized something far deadlier than fleets: time, patience, and calculated inevitability. In orbit around Cerulia Prime, a key trade hub, ships trembled as human operatives executed maneuvers that defied logic. Entire command structures collapsed, not from firepower, but from perfectly timed precision strikes on vulnerabilities no one even knew existed. Commander Alara watched the chaos unfold on her holoscreen. Her mind raced, piecing together a horrifying pattern. Humans didn't just attack. They predicted, they manipulated, and they waited centuries, if necessary, until the moment was perfect. Admiral Kale addressed his officers aboard the flagship, his voice calm, yet resolute. Every slight, every debt, every insult, the galaxy ignored them all. Today, they will learn the cost of negligence. And then, just as the council thought they might regain footing, a signal went out across every system. Not a threat, not a demand, a declaration. The debt is repaid. And the final lesson begins. Every leader froze. Every fleet hesitated. The galaxy could feel the weight of centuries pressing down, as if the stars themselves held their breath. Humans had arrived not to conquer, but to teach a lesson no empire could ignore. The final stage of their meticulous plan was about to unfold. One truth became terrifyingly clear. Human patience was infinite, and human memory unstoppable. The galaxy held its breath as the humans prepared for the final act. Planets that had once mocked Earth's inhabitants now stood trembling under the shadow of human strategy. No fleet could match their precision. No empire could anticipate their moves. Humans were no longer a species. They were a force of inevitability. On Direction Prime, the Council's chambers were a war zone of panic. Leaders argued, shouted, and even attempted desperate negotiations, but it was too late. Every system that had ignored the debt, every empire that had underestimated the humans, was about to face its reckoning. Admiral Kale's fleet converged at key strategic points across the galaxy, silent yet omnipresent. Every debt has been accounted for, he said to his crew, his voice steady. Every slight remembered, every wrong repaid. Today, they will understand the consequences of underestimating humanity. In the outer systems, humans executed the final moves with precision bordering on artistry. Trade routes collapsed, communication hubs went dark, and fleets surrendered without firing a single shot. It was not destruction for pleasure. It was the measured, unstoppable repayment of 3 centuries of neglect. And then, at the heart of the galaxy, a broadcast cut through every comm channel. We have repaid what was owed. Remember this day. Remember humans. Forget us no more. The galaxy had learned the ultimate truth. Humans never forget. Humans never forgive, and when the debt is repaid, even the stars tremble. Silence fell across the galaxy, deeper than any void, heavier than any supernova. Every empire, every leader, every citizen knew it. Humans had repaid their debt, and the universe had never witnessed anything like it. Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing at the stars that now seemed to bow under humanity's resolve. The galaxy will never forget this, he said softly. We did not seek vengeance. We demanded recognition. We claimed respect the only way the cosmos could understand, through action, patience, and precision. The Direction Council, once proud and unyielding, had been reduced not by firepower, but by the unwavering memory and discipline of humanity. The galaxy had underestimated a species it thought weak, fragile, and insignificant. And now, it understood the terrifying truth. Human patience is immortal, human strategy inescapable, and human resolve absolute. From the quietest corners of space, whispers spread. Legends grew. Stories of humanity's repayment would be told for centuries, not as tales of war, but as warnings, lessons, and myths of fear and respect. Commander Alara, who had survived the ordeal, stared at the void and finally spoke aloud. They weren't just repaying a debt, they were teaching the galaxy what it means to be human. And somewhere, in the depths of space, Admiral Kale smiled. Humanity had waited. Humanity had planned. Humanity had repaid. And now, the galaxy trembled, not because it was defeated, but because it finally knew who it had ignored for too long. The debt was settled. The lesson was complete. And humanity had only just begun.